Hello and welcome to the Auto Guide Show. This week we talk to Matt Farah and we also talk a lot about EVs and V8s. But first, a word from our sponsor. Picture this. You're halfway through a DIY car fix, tools scattered everywhere, and boom, you realize you're missing a part. It's okay because you know whatever it is, it's on eBay. They've got everything, brakes, headlights, cold air intakes, whatever you need, and it's guaranteed to fit, which means no more crossing your fingers and hoping you ordered the right thing. All the parts you need at the prices you'll love, guaranteed fit every time. eBay, things people love. Okay, so this week we are going to kick things off with the official debut of the Kia EV4. Now, it's not necessarily what exactly we'll get in North America. If we get it, I'm pretty sure we will. But this is what's going to be sold overseas. But if they sold it very similar to what this is, this could be the EV that we've been waiting for. That could actually make a dent, I think, in the market.
Except that it's not an SUV.
It looks like one though. A commentator already said that it looks like it's not a sedan shape. It's sort of like the Crown. It may be a car, but it sure doesn't look like one.
And I mean, with the EV5 now being out, Americans, coming to Canada, when you sit the EV5 beside the EV6, you see that the EV6 was really just a hatchback. It wasn't much of an SUV. And so, yeah, this does have a similar shape. Maybe it will play with people. Maybe they're fine with acknowledging that they never really wanted a crossover to begin with. I don't know. But it looks funky.
Well, it's going to have a 5-door. So, I mean, maybe like the Honest 5. I mean, I bet it's going to be about the same size. So you can maybe convince people. And you could always put an SUV body on this. But I think the reason it's not a crossover is the opposite of how you say everyone want one. Well, then people will be like, well, why does it have all-wheel drive? And that's sort of the point of this. This is the very sensible 200 horsepower front-wheel drive electric motor with a massive battery that can go mid 200 miles or mid 300 miles, depending on battery size. 0 to 60 in the 7-second range. Like, it's a regular car that's
plenty.
It's a regular car that just has crazy EV range. And I mean, if they could price it competitively, like, this is what we've been saying. A lot of people, like, people aren't buying EVs, but there aren't many regular EVs for us to choose from. The ones that have sensible power and range are like tiny or funky or, kind of out there. So, I mean, this is styled conventionally, but
yeah. And I mean, like, I understand why. I mean, even Tesla started with the Model S, right? Like, you don't start with your cheap model. You start with an expensive one that can pave the way for more affordable models. I get that, but it's like, okay, do this now. Can we get going? Can we actually have affordable models? And so, yeah, this is good. Price is gonna make or break it, in my mind, and at least deals.
Name wise, it'll be, I guess, above the EV3, which is going to be smaller. And if it shares drivetrains, I mean, there's your SUV, I guess, even though it's going to be a bit smaller. But that, I think, is targeted around 35 US to start. Now, obviously, that'll be, the entry model, and then it'll go up from there. But if this can start under 40 and you get a reasonable one under 50, I mean, that's not crazy.
I mean, the Equinox, I'm still itching to drive, what GM promised, the base model one, right? Because I really like the one that I drove last year, and realistically, I'm gonna get the same powertrain if I get the entry model. It's just swapping down to a lower spec of goodies, right? So yeah, I think this could be a really great alternative to the Equinox.
Yeah, because its base is a front drive, small motor, small battery. So
Yeah.
it's very similar. It's just a bigger box. But yeah, like you said, this looks funky. I mean, if I show this to someone and say, hey, look at this new vehicle, I don't know how many out of 10 would say, oh, it's a new car. There'd probably be a lot of people like, what is that? Or, oh, is that like a crossover?
It's true. The 5-door in particular is like unusual.
Yeah, it's not a flat hatch like you might be expecting in a hatchback.
No.
So moving on, we didn't get to do this because of scheduling, but our freelancer Lee Bailey got to drive the refreshed Outlander. But this is just the Outlander, not the PHEV. So the PHEV's getting apparently a lot of these updates next year. They've separated it, which is interesting.
They did that for the, Yeah, they did it when this debuted, right? They had their gas model, and then a year later they had the plug-in. Um, it's
I,
facelifted.
yeah, I'll get to that in a second. I guess this does technically sell more than the PF, although I feel like the split for this vehicle is probably one of the best plug-in to non, because that's all I ever see, because it is a good plug-in and it's like the only seven-seater this size, and you get good deals with Mitsubishi and warranties and all that. But yeah, I
Yeah.
had to read the details. So apparently that is a updated front end with grille and lights, and the rear end has new taillights, which I could see a little more different. And then inside it's got like new infotainment screen and
Hmm.
technology. And they've just kind of brought it a little more up to date. It is already easily their most up to date vehicle. Um,
Yes.
it's their most competitive vehicle in the segment. We've been talking about this, and I hope to do it late this year, early next year. I want to get all of this class hybrids together, plug-in or not, because once the Forester and Rogue show up, we're pretty much got everyone but like Volkswagen, I think, in the segment. So that'll be interesting because I really want to see how this matches up.
And the domestics. The domestics don't bother with hybrids unless you
Well,
count the Hornet
the
technically,
Escape,
but it's
Escape
small.
has a front drive
Oh
plug-in
yeah,
still.
I forgot
I
about
mean,
the
it's
Escape.
it's still there, and yeah, I mean, we could get the Hornet plug-in. That's actually not a bad idea as an alternative. I would also want to wait for this refresh, which, judging by timing, will probably be around this time next year, and that's when the Forester should be out. So I think we're advanced planning. But yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
it mechanically it's the exact same, so it doesn't change how it drives or any of that sort of things. But it was a good vehicle, so.
Does that mean it so it still has the naturally aspirated 2.5 liter? It does not have
Mhm.
the Turbo 3 from the related Rogue. Okay, so that could be a selling point, really, for some people.
Yeah, like Nissan's confirmed that's when the Rogue goes plug-in, they're getting the Mitsubishi system, which I guess was
Yeah.
co-developed to a degree, but yeah, it makes sense. If they were somehow putting their Turbo 3 to the hybrid, then why keep the 2.5?
Oh,
But
no, I meant this the refreshed
no, that's what I mean.
Outlander,
So
the
you might as well
gas.
keep
It's
your regular
yeah,
2.5 because you need it for
yeah,
the plug-in too. So, and
yeah,
it's a smooth enough engine. I mean, we've compared them. We just compared the Forester to the Rogue, and it's a very different engine profile, but in the end, they kind of do the same thing. So,
yeah. I mean, yeah.
big
Interesting.
turbo,
Okay.
small engine, or big engine, no turbo. So,
Yeah.
speaking of turbos and engines, the Ramcharger has finally released official details, mostly, somewhat, a few. A lot of the speculation they're kind of reinforcing, but the really cool thing was in this in-depth presentation, they kind of confirmed and explained how the hybrid system works, and it's basically what the Volt did, but even more so. It's what the Volt was supposed to do. So the 3.6 Pentastar that's under the hood makes about 272 horsepower, I think. It is in absolutely no way connected to any of the wheels. It is solely a generator motor. So it's just like a locomotive where this thing powers a generator motor that's attached to it, and then it sends power to the battery, which I don't think we have a size yet, but the battery
Uh,
pack's
the
substantial.
battery pack is like 90-ish,
Yeah,
somewhere
it's
around
going to be
that
in the
range.
90s. That's sort of what they said. Like, it's going to be smaller than what they'll put in the Rev, but
Oh,
that's
way
kind of been
smaller.
pushed. Yeah, that's kind of been
Uh,
pushed back. And then there's two
that.
electric motors. So
Mm.
the battery will power the electric motors up to, they're still estimating about 150 miles on a charge, which is a ton. And then the gas engine, when the battery's completely depleted, can take over and keep both electric motors powered, which is pretty incredible because it has 600 and something horsepower, yet the gas engine's only 200 and something. But they said there would be, you wouldn't notice performance or like huge losses or differences. The gas engine can also, once the battery's depleted, it'll always be creating juice. So even if you're stopped or coasting, it'll then start sending power to the battery to kind of also keep that as extra boost. But if it works,
Which
this is the plug-in hybrid system that I think is sort of the interim future. Um, which yeah,
I I think this makes sense for trucks. I think range extenders make a lot of sense here because I mean that's the question that keeps coming up every single time anyone drives a Lightning ever. People are like, "Oh, well, how much does it lose when you tow?" And
mm-hmm.
and so this solves that concern, right? Like there are trucks that do long, long distances under load. And so you need a solution that makes sense, and this does more than a regular plug-in hybrid. I don't think for most people's day to day this actually makes any sense. Or not that it doesn't make sense. I don't see it as particularly better than a regular plug-in hybrid. If I can drive a RAV4 hybrid for 60 or 70 miles on nothing but electric power, that's good for most cases. And this still has the issue of having a huge battery pack, right? Like this is smaller than a Ram Rev, which I'm still not even convinced is ever going to come out at this point. But
Yeah, we keep pushing it back. So this,
yeah,
you're right. This thing weighs a lot. It doesn't weigh as much as the Chevy pickups and Sierras and Hummers and all that, but it does weigh more than a Lightning. But I love the engine. But your point to the RAV4, it is different in the sense you get all the power all the time, whereas when you're on just electric power with the RAV4 and the other plug-in, you don't have the maximum power the vehicle can make. Now, it's not like you need to do 0 to 60 sprints everywhere, but for some vehicles, it's like very noticeable when you lose your gas counterpart, and other ones it's not. The RAV4 is a good example because it has tons of power for both the engine and the motor. But what I think it could be scaled down to cars. So sort of what the i3 did and what the Volt did is just they were both, I guess, too unusual at the time for their buyers. But you could have a tiny little generator motor and a medium size or even a smaller battery, and yeah, if you could go 60 to 100 miles on a charge, and then like a 0.8 liter 3-cylinder turns on to charge the battery back up, I mean, that could work.
The funny thing in the presentation was they didn't really touch on it until later. Of like, there is a lot of the battery pack that is kept in reserve, a lot more than an EV or something, and that is to do with, like you said, it's like there's 600 and something horsepower in this thing, but the V6 is less than half that. So the reserve is there in case you run out completely, and then you're relying on the V6 power. Like it's very complicated, and I think it makes sense in a truck, and because they have the footprint, right? Like you can throw a huge battery at this because it's fine. But I don't know. I'm very curious, right? Like this is going to potentially change the game when it comes out this year, and how it drives is going to matter, because I'll be honest, the 4xe system, I know it's very different, but the 4xe is not the smoothest. And so I'm hoping, because this isn't actually swapping power sources, I'm hoping this is a smoother drive. Yeah,
Like I said,
we'll
and
see.
the 4xe is a good example of one where you're on all battery. You're like, whoa, I've lost a lot of power. You have to be very gentle to not make that gas engine kick in.
Yeah.
To your point with this one, yeah, like there's no drive shaft, no transmission. Like there's other parts missing, but apparently by like it could tow, I think 14,000 pounds and take a big payload. So it can still do truck things, which people who just scoff at EVs, like it makes sense because you literally just have a motor connected to two wheels. So
yeah,
it can be as powerful and as strong and as robust as you want. You don't have as many moving parts. But yeah, like I said, the Volt was a good example of something slightly ahead of its time, and I wonder if more will try this. It is overly complicated. I mean, this isn't the same at all, but the Honda hybrid system is sort of in between this and conventional EVs, and they're somewhere in the middle. So yeah, but I hope this drives great. I hope the transition's nice. Hope it's not CX90 PF transition. And pricing too, like this won't be cheap, but it's just a cool thing. And the big thing, like you said, is it can now tow. It can go 690 miles empty, gas and battery combined. So yeah, we'll see how it does.
I'm glad that they've moved away from the quote that they had when they originally revealed this, which was unlimited range, because that doesn't make sense, guys.
Gotta gas up at some point. So sticking with Chrysler and Mopar and Stellantis, we'll just quickly get through this one. So we, as we've thought and suspected, don't really know what's going to happen with the Compass. They have officially put the Brampton plant that was to build the new electric Compass indefinitely on hold. So basically, they say they're still investing in the plant like they are, and they're retooling, but it sounds like they may stop whatever they were tooling and start tooling something else. I have absolutely no idea. Could the speculation is it'll still be a Compass, they'll just make a gas version first, sort of like the Charger if they're making it dual purpose anyway. But it sounds like the Rev, this is another thing that's kind of been put on the back shelf, and I'm sure everyone in Brampton's really worried.
Yeah, understandably. My thinking with this, and I mean, ignoring the not, I don't want to make light of the plant situation because that's a serious concern for all the people who are relying on it. I'm just thinking from a model perspective. We know that a Cherokee replacement is coming this year. We don't know like the name. We don't know anything about it, but we know that it's coming before the end of the year. And the weird thing about Jeep's lineup a few years back was that the Compass and Cherokee were essentially in the same segment. One is
Hmm.
just a little smaller. So replacing both of them with one thing, like Acura with the TLX and RLX years ago, um, it kind of makes sense.
Hmm.
So maybe it's for that. I don't know. And I know that that platform is adaptable. I know it can have full EV, full gas, or hybrid versions. So maybe it's this.
That's
Maybe it's related.
no, that's exactly what I have been thinking too, and I was gonna get to. I would be on the same thinking. I think their goal or plan was gas Cherokee can make the Trail Hawks, not Trail Hawk, yeah, Trail Hawks, and all those,
Yeah.
like the off road, and then the Compass could go more car like, which it initially was the first gen. Remember the original Compasses? It could go more car like and be the EV. And I think their thought was when the under the old management and whatnot was Brampton will build this EV, we'll put the Cherokee where the Cherokee is, and now they're kind of probably like, yeah, they're just I think rethinking. But and then we're not even getting into this whole U.S. Canada border situation, but
Can't help.
yeah, I hope the Cherokee Compass, whatever gas one, does get built there, and even if it's just for Canada and other markets. But it sounds like they reaffirmed something's going there. But I think the workers who work in there that are like the actual installers that do the tooling, they probably know. But I wonder if there's like, okay, stop installing that equipment. We are switching to
Yeah.
this equipment now.
Yeah. Ugh.
All right, so switching to well, this is still a plug-in kind of to V8. It was announced the CLE AMG 63 is going to get the 4-liter mild hybrid V8 as opposed to the C63's plug-in hybrid 4-cylinder crazy combination monster power plant. And at first, sounds strange because why are they both 63s? But Kyle, you pointed this out off air earlier, their 53s don't even line up by all having the same engine. So, and I mean, back in the day, they didn't either. Like, I remember at one point, 63s could be naturally aspirated V8s or supercharged ones. And so, um,
Yeah.
it's confusing.
Yeah.
So, this V8 is available, I think, still in the S class, like regular S class, right? Like, I don't know what the numbers are anymore.
Yeah, so the non-AMG V8 is available in the S class and I think the I think the G the Gelandewagen still has a regular non-AMG V8. I think. And then of course, oh wait, no, because the I was gonna say the SL and the AMG GT, but those are of course AMGs. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think it's just the S class.
So yeah, so this I mean they're saying this is an AMG, but it's not the plug-in. So it will be interesting to see how this goes. The speculation, I think this was from Autocar, is that the C63 isn't selling how they expected. People aren't warming up to the idea of that drivetrain. So could this replace the C63? I mean, if sales are that terrible, we won't know. I don't think Mercedes breaks out their segments. No one else really does, but I mean, it's good news for the V8 people. The CLE gets one, but we'll see sort of what happens down the road.
Yeah. So I just quickly checked. I forgot that the GLE and GLS both also get regular turbo
Mhm.
V8s. Um, yeah. I Mercedes lineup is so confusing. Uh,
Well,
and
since
so the
this is a
CLE.
53, oh no, this is 63. So this isn't an AMG V8 technically, but it is, which is also confusing.
So that's the confusing part is I thought AMG was essentially just going to plugins at this point, outside of the SL and the AMG GT. Those stay
Hmm.
as you can get different versions and blah blah blah. But the regular cars and SUVs, any full AMG version was going to be a plug-in moving forward. That was the impression, but I guess plans are changing. Like the CLE 53 currently is the non-plug-in, but then the E53 is the plug-in. So I
And they're
we'll
both inline
see.
sixes, right?
Yeah, it's the same inline six. And I mean, this was the case before, right? Like the E-Class Coupe, you couldn't get a 63 before. Mercedes intentionally kept the coupe limited, whereas the E sedan and wagon both had 63s. So I think that's why the CLE right now only has a mid level. But yeah,
But I think back then part of it was you had the CLS and the SL, so they didn't want the E coupe, being the more affordable, better performing version of those. But the only thinking I have is you're kind of getting at it is the CLE is a two-door coupe, so it's kind of on the performance side. So maybe they figure the person buying this wants that, that rumble or whatever, as opposed to, yeah. But I mean, Mercedes has always had lots of engines, lots of choices. It's just interesting because everyone, and me included, would have assumed this would be the 4 or the 6 plug-in, one of those power plants in the 63, but guess not.
And I think that's the thing is like if you can make it work, if you can make a V8 plug-in work in your S class, it seems odd to move this C class away from it. I know that that's the reputation the C class has built, the AMG version over the last few generations. Is like it is the German muscle car.
Exactly.
And so this always seemed like a weird choice. I mean, it's technologically impressive, and I'm sure they can link it to their F1 car. The problem is no one likes how modern F1 cars sound anyway.
And yeah, like the C63S, like I love that car because it rumbled and it was quick, and you can't say, well, it's so much more efficient, which it is. Okay, I get that, but it's not cheaper. Like I can't imagine that system saves money from just putting a turbo V8, but we'll see. Maybe it'll change. Maybe they're, like I said, they're trying to make this more E than C because it is in the between. Anyway, that is our last news story. We are going to take a short break, and I'll be back with Greg to talk about a product. This week it's pylons. And then after that, Kyle and I will be back to talk with Matt Farah about YouTube, car creating, car storing, all sorts of great topics. So until then, this is the Auto Guide Show brought to you by eBay Motors, and we will be back in a couple seconds. Swapping out your tires? There's nothing like it. With eBay, you'll find the feel you're looking for, from smooth highway rides to grip for rough terrain. Get all the tires you need at prices you'll love. eBay, things people love. All right, welcome back, everyone. We have Greg joining us again to talk products. This week we have something a little more unusual, maybe, for the automotive set.
So this week we're going to talk about the best safety cones, which are good for, if you find yourself in an emergency roadside situation, or perhaps you need to maybe mark off your driveway or any other, traffic situation. And they're also, orange cones are a lot of fun. I think it's great if you have kids. They're the ideal companion for soccer practice, for football, you name it. So we got a great list here for you. The aptly named the best safety cones for work and play. I think that covers it pretty well. Check out our list. We got a lot of great things on there. I like the Sunny Glade 4-pack because you get 4 of them. So that's a good start. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think they're basically a household essential. Do you have any orange cones laying around your house or garage, Mike?
Currently, no, because before I live, I don't have to worry about blocking off my driveway from randoms parking in it when I don't want them to. I do have a little one in one of my cars for emergency, like I said, breakdown, and I think it's essential to have a reflective strip or a fully reflective cone on that instance, because then people will see it better. I used to have a whole set actually for AutoGuide. They're probably still kicking around somewhere because we would do them for some of our tests, which is something I think maybe we'll get back to.
That's a good idea. There's also, if you scroll down on the story, there's an LED light up cones, which I think is, that could be great if you find yourself in a dicey situation as darkness is falling. It also would be a heck of a lot of fun for like flag football or something with your kids. So these are multi-purpose. Are they, car gear equipment? Are they sporting equipment? I mean, who's to say? I think they're both. So, I think it's kind of essential. And then if you do find yourself in a rough situation, it's always good to maybe have some flares or something, which is going to really give you that extra degree of visibility. If you're in like a truly high leverage situation, like the side of an expressway or something. So yeah, I think these are, all of these on our list will get the job done. At the end of the day, orange cones are orange cones, but some are better. Some offer some more features. Again, like these LED ones are super cool, I think. I almost think of like shadow golf or something where you're playing a sport is, in the dark, which is kind of fun. So these are solid tools is what they are.
Yeah, and there's different kinds for different situations, and even the materials. Like you can get the plastic ones, which are probably good for, like you're saying, or for sports or for just marking out maybe the edge of a driveway. But the taller rubber ones are probably better if they're going to be used around cars or on the road, because they just kind of collapse when they get run over as opposed to shatter. Because anyone who's tried to autocross in the cold knows when a plastic cone gets cold, it just becomes glass basically.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I'm thinking back to my days when I did more like road tests and track tests and things like that. If you hit a cone, I mean, one, it's, you kind of have to sort of wear the cone of shame, but you also, if it's a rubber cone, okay, the guy kind of rips it out of your wheels and away you go. If it's plastic and it's like a fall test or something, look out. You might as well have just hit a ceramic vase or something. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different purposes. I personally actually like to have the smaller ones just around because they're more versatile. You can use them for different things. But this is hilarious. I just threw out some enormous rubber cones because they were kind of breaking down. I don't know if maybe even like a mouse got in there or something in the garage, but I am in the market for some taller rubber cones, just because I like the, I literally, this might sound crazy. I will more often than not drive around with some cones in my car. I think it's a good thing to have in your trunk. And I would suggest you might do the same. I think it's just another added layer of safety that if you find yourself in a bad spot, it's, a way to, keep you just a little bit safer.
Yeah. Back to what you're saying about hitting the cones. Have you ever really autocrossed or done tire tests or vehicle tests and not know that feeling of hearing the cones scraping stuck underneath the car and the shame of having to come to a stop and dig it out? I mean, I think that's something we've all experienced at some point, and that's what those cones are designed to be able to do. And I mean, obviously there's a application for construction and road work, but that's not really what we're getting at. We're getting at more residential uses.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to some memories at the Ford test track. They would have journalists come in. It's in Dearborn, and it's a pretty cool track. And the autocrossing is naturally always part of that. No matter how good you are, there's like no skill level involved. You have whether it's buff book, website, people who can maybe sort of wheel a car a little bit, or, people who are just there for the day to drive the new Ford Edge or whatever they were showing. And it can be tricky because you might end up with one under your car, and that's a little embarrassing. But again, that's what they're there for, and it's, I think, I mean, they're important, they're fun, they're useful, you name it.
All right, well, thanks for joining us and talking about the cones. People can go check out the article on our site. It's called The Best Safety Cones for Work and Play, as Greg mentioned. And we will see you next week back on the back on the Auto Guide Show, brought to you by eBay Motors. So until then, have a good week.
See you later, Mike.
Picture this. You're in the garage, your favorite room in the house, and you're tuning up your engine with parts you found on eBay. Every piece is just locking perfectly into place. You step back to admire your work, hands covered in grease, and because you're committed to driving that thing further than the odometer can handle, you start to think to yourself, you know what, I could probably also use some new brakes, some shocks and struts, and this baby deserves a new air filter. So you head right back to eBay. You can find any part you need there, it's unreal. From wipers and headlights to cold air intakes, exhaust systems, and even that turbo you've had on your mind. eBay is the stocked garage of your dreams, and you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. Because eBay knows DIY fixes can be major, and mods are always intense, so you need to know that these parts guaranteed to fit every time before you dive in wrench first. And in the off chance you order a part and it doesn't fit, send it back, simple as that. You know what you love more than the car itself is driving it. You're serious when it comes to engine maintenance, and you're locked in when you're headed into a build. And that's exactly why you start with eBay, minor fix or complete overhaul. You want to get your ride back on the road, and you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. So eBay created My Garage, where all you have to do is add your ride's info and get the exact parts that fit. When you see the green check, you're a click away from that part clicking perfectly into place. So now that you know all that, imagine standing at that open garage door looking at your car you love more than anything, knowing that anything is possible. Whether it's keeping it on the road forever or turning it into something that's never been on the road before. Because with eBay, your garage just got a whole lot bigger. Get all the parts you need at prices you love, guaranteed to fit every time. eBay, things people love. Hello and welcome back to the show. This week we have a very special guest. If you could just introduce yourself, Matt, and what you do.
Hey, Matt Farah here, host of the Smoking Tire podcast, the Smoking Tire YouTube channel, editor at large for Road and Track magazine, and founder of Westside Collector Car Storage in LA.
Yeah, I doubt many of our listeners don't know the name by now. If you're in the car world, you've probably read something, watched something, or maybe even bumped into you somewhere.
There have been many pieces of content. I wouldn't. It's probably you've probably seen it somewhere. Whether you liked it or not, now that's a different question entirely, isn't it?
You're like
Thanks for having me.
the king of the videos up on the LA Canyon roads there. Whenever I see one, I'm like, oh, that's got to be a Smoking Tire video, and it usually is.
I mean, I suppose, yeah, we have an amazing resource at our disposal here in LA. It's a big part of the reason I moved here.
Yeah, we don't. We live in a very flat, squared off metropolitan, so it kind of sucks. So I love getting away from here to go do drives like that.
Yeah.
So I guess briefly what we're doing with this series is talking about you and how you got into where you're doing. So what got you your interest in cars? Was it family, or is it something you just kind of got into on your own?
It was a combination of, my dad bringing me car magazines when I was a kid, and encouraging me to, find ways to drive things, go-karts, golf carts, stuff like that. And really wanting to learn about all the cars, all the specs and everything. I would really study that stuff. And then eventually, when I was like 9, my dad and mom bought me a go-kart. And so when I started, being able to go my version of fast, it was probably 25 miles an hour. That really started the whole thing. And then it really just became about driving as many things as possible.
So as you mentioned, you moved to LA, obviously career based. Did things really sort of take off once you get down there?
Well, I mean, coming here was so obvious. I'm from the Northeast, and there's snow, and I like New York City, and we have good roads in the suburbs, but they're not good for filming. And when I first started making YouTube videos, it was working for another person who had hired me to work and host a show for them. And so that was in New York, and it was where I lived. So of course, that's where we made videos. But once that company collapsed, and it became up to me and my cameraman Tom to start over, which is what ended up being the Smoking Tire. Going to California was so obvious because it's where all the cars were, it's where all the people were, it's where they made TV. And at the time, we really thought we could do a TV show. That was our original intent with YouTube videos, was to have a rolling audition reel for television. Actually, it didn't work out that way, but in 08, 09, that seemed like a good plan. And I've been doing this out here for 15, 16 years now. And I think I've been rained out or weathered. I've had weather cancellations, I don't know, 4 times in, the whole time. So I think that was, it was the right move. Had to be done.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you mentioned the moving to California. It was like a rolling audition for a TV show. And it kind of touches on something that we've found a lot of people have mentioned on the show recently, of like, none of us really plan on getting into this, right? Like it's sort of taking unusual ways. So did you take a direct path? Did you always know you were going to do something in this industry, Matt? Or did you kind of...
No, I mean, when I was
like a side door
reading, I mean, I probably would never have gotten into the industry without the invention of YouTube and the idea of self-publishing. When I was a kid growing up, subscribing to Road and Track and Car and Driver and reading those magazines, and I said this on another podcast recently, so I'm sorry for anyone who's listened to both, but the idea that I could somehow grow up and be the guy that did that for a living, you might as well have said, grow up to be Superman or something. That's not something that just like regular people would get to do. I didn't know how people would get to do that, but it wasn't something like just like normal people did. Um, and so that wasn't even an option. And you know, so it was after college, and I studied photography in college. And after college, when it was very clear very fast that I couldn't make any money being an artsy photographer, it was, well, what about cars? And I didn't know what I wanted to do in cars, but I liked being around them. I liked talking about them and driving them. And so it was just sort of one car job to the next, until YouTube was invented. And then I started making YouTube videos immediately. I mean, within, I don't know, months of YouTube being invented. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll get to that. It's like I fully understand what you mean about reading the magazines as a teenager and thinking like this would be amazing, but I'll never do this in my life. And I was the exact same
Yeah.
way. But to the YouTube, yeah, you're like one of the originators when it comes to car content on YouTube. You've been doing it for a long time and kind of got your foot in the door early, which is great. Have you obviously seen big changes over the 15 or 20 years you've been doing
Oh
that?
yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, there's been 4 or 5 major changes to how the platform operates in that time. In the very beginning, you know, 2006 to really 2009, it was really very much about getting blogs and other websites to turn your content into their content. You know, it was about getting Jalopnik to cover your video or something like that, and then trying to convince people to subscribe to your videos. And subscribers really made a big difference. And now subscribers is much more of a bragging right than it is any kind of function of how many views your video will get. Um, once people started really catching on and started being subscribed to a lot of channels, so many channels they couldn't keep up with all the content. Subscribers, YouTube started ranking in how in ranking people's subscriber lists. So like for instance, if you're subscribed to 50 channels, but half of them you didn't watch their last 2 videos, they would stop showing them to you. Curate your subscribers list to only the ones where you recently, so that hurt a lot. And then they sort of started switching to the more algorithmic um, version of YouTube, which was heavily favored watch time for a long time. It was when they went from one ad per video to multiple ads per video, it became, well, if you can get someone to, each ad only pays you a tenth as much, but if you can get people to watch 8 or 9 ads over 35 minutes of content, okay, now you're back to where you were before. And then now, your feed is so algorithmically curated that most people just either like type in youtube.com or click on their bookmark in their browser or open up the YouTube app and just really look at sort of what's fed to them. And it's all about tricking the algorithm or something into feeding you to people, because in for the first half of my career, any given video we put out, it was like 90% our subscribers would watch it and like 10% new people. That is inverted now. It's 90% non-subscribers and 10% subscribers. Now, part of that is because maybe over time your subscribers become less interested in what you do, but also so many people are finding your content from the homepage based on what they've recently been watching, and it's just been fed to them. So it's all about getting fed. So those are the major changes to YouTube, which, if you list them out like that, you understand very rapidly why a lot of content is straight up garbage because it's just designed to feed optimization. It's designed to feed basic human instincts, a YouTube expert would tell you that people love controversy and drama, people shitting on each other, that kind of stuff, that sort of gossipy, trashy stuff. But they also love talking about money. So I lost this much money. Here's how you can make this much money. And they really want you can talk about those kind of things to really get hit. And then it's the bright title cards and the YouTuber face and all that other dumb stuff that you have to do because, people are just like monkeys, right? We're idiots. We have no control over ourselves. And that's why if I do a video that has a title card with a yellow car and do the exact same video, same car, same everything, except the car's white or black, it's like an 11% lower click-through rate because the car is a different color, because humans like don't understand how our reactions work to stuff, but like YouTube does. So, yeah.
Yeah, you actually said quite a few interesting things in there. It's interesting to hear your viewerships just like our channel. Well, we're about a 10% subscriber, 90% search. And we have a decent amount of subscribers that I'm sure by now 3/4 are dead accounts from back in the day. Because 10, 12 years ago, we really went all in and like we could get tons of views on videos. We had professional shooting, like a whole team. And then that's kind of disappeared too. Like the quality doesn't seem to matter as much.
It's how people find videos and how they get fed to them, and they're getting fed. Car reviews are educational content that are, they're useful, they're good, and sometimes they can be entertaining, sometimes not, but sometimes they are, and but it's not. There's no drama to it. If you did a thing, my most viewed video in the last year is basically the video saying like the 10 ways the Cybertruck sucks. I mean, but what am I going to do? Just make a channel and make every video be like the 10 ways this thing sucks? Like I'd never get a press car again. Like I'd be cast out, so yeah, it's sort of it's a bummer. And also, YouTube, what they need for themselves is new creators to decide to be YouTubers as a career. Whereas people who have been around for a very long time, they know they've got these people locked in pretty good. If you've dedicated 15 years to making YouTube videos as a career, they know perfectly well how hard they can squeeze you. They know where the exact number is that you will quit because they have the data. They have all the data. So they just know. They know, okay, I can turn the screws on this guy, turn down their revenue, turn down their visibility in favor of a new creator. A guy makes his first video, boom, front page YouTube, big hit, 300,000 views, check for 15 hundo. That guy's hooked. That's that $5 rock. First one's free. That's that guy's career now. You know what I mean? And so they need that. So they're incentivized to do it. They do it. And old people like me that have been around, they know they can turn the taps pretty tight on us and we're not going to fully quit. Or if we do, well, they'll just turn them back up for somebody else, So, it sounds very cynical. It is very cynical. It's very cynical. It's why I am going to spend most of the rest of my life running a very blue collar, parking business that I love, that is great, and that is, will serve me and my family and my staff, pay their rent, pay their mortgages. That's what it's about. And the billionaires aren't in between me and my concrete and my steel.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I want to talk about your current business in a second. But just back to YouTube. Yeah, like I remember when we did it 12 years ago, there was not a bit more than a handful, but there weren't many people who were doing really hard YouTube for everything. You go on these drives like you're talking about, there'd be like 5 of us. And now like everybody's doing video. So it's so saturated too, which makes it even harder to get your voice out.
Well, it's shifted now. The new thing is the TikTok. Now it's like, oh, there's someone who's on there just doing TikTok, and it's just, and on it rolls.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna say is now it's not just YouTube. Now it's 4 other platforms that you have to get stuff for. And it's, well, there's 30-second videos, and then there's the long form, and then there's all this other stuff. And you have to interact with the viewers live. Like, here's questions you can
Yeah.
ask. There's so many levels added on now.
And all of that is to maintain the same level of income you got in 2018 from just the video. It's not greedy and needing to conquer the world. You're chasing the high you got at whatever year the peak was, and then it's squeezed after that. So I elected to not, my dream is essentially to be Harry Metcalf. I like Harry a lot. We've met a couple of times. He's a lovely man. And my takeaway from Harry is that this is a guy who creates content when, how, and why he feels like it. He doesn't need the money. He doesn't care about making money. Some of his videos do very well, other ones don't. And he doesn't really give a shit. And that's where I would like to be, because when you're doing it for passion, like anything else, and there was a time I really did do it for passion, but now it's easy. It's going to be better to have a backstop of a concrete business and be able to do it for the passion of it, instead of having to grind it out and do a video on a press launch. I finally just this morning responded to a press launch invite for an exotic vehicle. I'm not going to say what it is. But they said, you can come, and I said, listen, I for the first time, I'd love to come. I cannot make a video on the timetable. And I can do social. I'll talk about it on the podcast. And if that is sufficient, I'd love to be there. But I will not be. And they said, that's fine. And I went, oh, I don't have to do the thing to do the fun thing. Oh shit, let's go. Great.
Reward for all your hard work for the last 2 decades.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, dude, making a video solo on a press launch, that's tough work. That is very, very tough work. It is.
Oh, yes, we know. It's not fun. And trying to turn it around and edit it in time for the embargo that's the next day.
Oh, dude, Zach just came back, and Zach, he knows this, but like, if I can't go or don't want to go on a press launch, I'll kick it to Zach. And sometimes it's an awesome car and an awesome event, and I just couldn't go for scheduling. And sometimes he knows why I've kicked it to him, and I kicked him the Maserati MC20 GT2 Stradale, which superficially, at Ascari, like, sounds awesome. That sounds great. And he was like, all right, cool. And he was there, and he texted me from there, and he's like, I see why you didn't want to go on this. This is a complete shit show. I was like, yep.
That is the one thing I've noticed with mainstream manufacturers, is they're supporting the video time now, or even have their own people, which is nice. Because even like, well, before COVID, it was, like you said, you go on a solo trip and you're on your own. It's still not.
It would not be possible. For me, it would not be possible to make a video of any type of quality without a proper B-roll package, which, and I have to, when I get on a launch or an event, I have to be the guy who goes, listen, what color is the car in the B-roll package? And I absolutely need to be driving a car that it matches it visually. And I have, you got to be annoying about it, but it's the job, right?
Yeah, every once in a while you end up on a trip where they're like, we have 20 identically prepped cars. You're like, perfect, this is great. I don't have anything to worry about. The B-roll's gonna match.
That's a real delight. That's pro level stuff. But I've been on an equal number where the B-roll car is green, and they literally don't have a green one to drive. And it's like, guys, like, who did you set this event up for? Like, certainly not people that need the video you've shot to give them. Like, what are we doing here?
And you wonder, it's like, that probably took more effort because you came to the same place to do the B-roll.
Yeah. It's absolutely insane. And this isn't, I don't want anyone who's listening to think that, like, I don't really enjoy so many aspects of the job, but I'm just saying that, like, YouTube video specifically, with respect to that's how I've done most of my career, is not going to be the future. It's just not for me anyway. So fortunately, like, I love working at Road and Track. I love writing. I think there's something, you guys, because you've gone on launches, you made videos, you understand the difference between going on a thing that is an adventure of any kind with a car, taking some still photos, but having the adventure fully. The difference between that and going on a thing that's on a condensed timeline and trying to make a video, get everything on camera there, then you have to say it while you're driving because you don't have another chance to do it because you get 2 sessions on the track and that is all. And there's, by the way, other people waiting for the car, and you're by yourself. And is the audio speeding? Is it peaking? Is my lapel mic? Is that GoPro running? Is that GoPro running? Okay, okay, go. That I produce a better product when I don't have to get it all out right then. I produce a better product when I can have an experience, consider what I've just done, make some notes, think about it, compare it to other things that people, like writing, like people who make stuff professionally, like, do. So
Yeah. No,
I like writing.
connects.
Paper and pen is a high level medium. It's like stand up comedy. There's no, you can't cover it up, right? I mean, I have an editor, but like, actually, I like having an editor. I like having a fact checker. Both of those people, when I write for the magazine, make my stories better. And I've only ever been in one situation where they made it worse, and I got my fact right, and the editor corrected it to a wrong fact. And then the person at the car manufacturer was like, "Hey, why did you write this?" And I sent the person at the car manufacturer the version that I turned in that had the correct facts in it, and it was like busted. Usually, editors are good.
Yeah, it's always good to have another set of eyes on things. And to your point about trying to get everything done on a condensed timeline, it's like, quality suffers if you're spreading thin. You can't put the depth into stuff that you want to, right?
Yeah, there's a reason like actors aren't also the director and the cinematographer and the key grip most of the time. There's a reason for that. They should focus on what they're doing when the camera's pointed at them. Probably might make for a better product. Just saying.
Yeah. Perfect world. I wish we could have that all the time. That's why I like doing video when I have a car at home for a week, because you can spread it out over time and really spend some time with it. But those launches are the ones that usually get the views, and you got to be there, and you got to be first with everyone else.
It's very, very hard. It's yeah, and I would prefer to get the car at home on my own schedule every single time. Yeah.
So you've talked about it a couple times. You have a second career that you started up a couple of years ago now, which is actually just as cool. Like, it's not like you went and did some accounting at some corporation. So you own a giant car storage place, basically, right?
I wouldn't say giant. We now have 2 of them. Actually, we opened our second one in the summer of 2023. It's called Westside Collector Car Storage. It is. I certainly didn't invent the concept of luxury concierge car storage. That's been a thing, but it didn't exist in my neighborhood, and so I built one, and it took a very long time. It took 4 years to build. It's very hard to build stuff like that in LA, and so we filled it, in about a year, which was pretty cool. So I built another one, and we filled that one in a year. And I've bought the building next door to the second one, so we're going to be doubling the size of the capacity of that facility, which is great. And we don't need to conquer the world. If I could have 4 or 5 of these things, that would be phenomenal, and that would be a great, career that I could have in order to. Come here, Finn. My cat wants to come. Say hello. This is Finn. We have 4 cats. This is my biggest boy. Um, it's a great way, a consistent income, make videos, podcasts, articles. I mean, that's the gig economy, right? So wouldn't it be nice to have a fairly consistent revenue stream and a small commercial real estate portfolio that would allow me to basically be like Harry Metcalf and make content when and how I felt like making content and not really worry about the money anymore. So yeah, I kind of saw that coming, actually, not in terms of our imminent collapse of our digital economy, thanks to Elon Musk and Donald Trump, but I mean more like I knew that YouTube was a volume business at the time, and I after making like 1,500, 1,600 videos, I went, can't keep this up forever. I don't know what they expect me to do, but that's not an option. So I will need some kind of a off ramp. And fortunately, I mean, not fortunately, unfortunately, everyone else is going to need an off ramp too. DeMuro's figured it out. Some other folks have figured it out. But yeah, pretty soon, everyone's going to be needing an off ramp.
So what challenges or similarities, I guess, actually, would you say there were between, starting YouTube so early on and then starting this other business?
There's so few similarities. I mean, there's so few similarities. I mean, they're complementary, which is great. I mean, I have, my podcast studio and my office is at our original location, and my one business pays rent to my other business. Is very, and if I need press cars dropped off or picked up, or stuff dropped off or stuff picked up, or fans want to come by and see something that's cool and connected to us, the shop is a great place to do that. I don't have to either choose between running a business out of my house or staffing a separate office for just the smoking tires. So they are, having both companies headquartered at the same place is incredibly convenient. Not to mention the marketing value that the smoking tire brings to the car storage business, which is enormous, and it would be very, very difficult and expensive to replicate the marketing value that content creation brings to a real world brick and mortar business. It's significant. So there will always be a value in being someone who's out there doing stuff, creating content, because it does. But and on top of that, I mean, me being out there, I've been at like track days and car events and stuff, and just met people in person. And oh, hey, he's got a car store, and just huge clients. I mean, I was complaining to Zach when we had done the Lucid Sapphire video where we drove it to Sonoma Raceway. We did a full track test at Sonoma. And I mean, what a privilege to have Sonoma to yourself. I had Sonoma to myself. I mean, that's like a $20,000 value. I used the drag strip. I used the road course, road trip, 3 days, hotels, blah, blah. The video was like Tank City. I mean, it was like 40,000 views, like death. Nobody cared.
Oh, no.
No, nobody gave a shit. The video made like $300. I mean, it was stupid, so stupid. But there was a guy at the track who I met, who I now store 8 of his cars in between then and now. So after I met him, he called me 3 weeks later. Cars just start showing up. I mean, like crazy cars too, like sick cars just start showing up, and they're still showing up. Like this guy, give this guy 2 years, he's probably gonna have a whole building. So me just being out there and doing stuff is actually better for that business than me sitting behind a desk and looking at spreadsheets and things like that. So I have very competent management running the shop, but I do a lot of sales, marketing. I chat with the customers. I do a lot of our concierge sellers. We run cars on Bring a Trailer, stuff like that.
Yeah, what you mentioned about leveraging smoking tire, like I think that's really important. You saw that you could use the one business you started to grow the other, and you see so many of these so-called YouTube personalities that are sort of in your situation. They kind of peaked and they need to do something else because the revenue's not coming in and they don't really do anything, and then they just kind of disappear. Or you can see them post these videos like, I had to sell my house, I had to sell all my cars.
Yeah, that, I feel for people that are doing that, but yeah, it's for sure. I mean, for sure. And so the off ramp was very important, and they work hand in hand. And look, and eventually that YouTube number will drop below where it makes sense to do this stuff regularly, but it'll always be worth putting out a video once in a while, going to events, and continuing to write articles and I'll keep doing the podcast that's great. That's fun. Videos are like, videos for me are more a vehicle to just get the seat time in the car. I'd really rather just have the seat time at this point. So if we can do output of content another way, in a less time consuming and more enjoyable way that creates a better output, I think that's probably wise.
And your garage you have, like, it's not like you're running some sort of public parking garage in downtown LA. Like, there's, like you said a couple times, there's some fun stuff in there. So when you go to work, you just kind of walk around and see stuff that you may never even get to see.
It's cool. Oh yeah,
other way.
It's cool. And my office has a window. We're at my house right now, but my office has, two windows that look into the shop. And yeah, I mean, no, it's a great place to go to work, and it's a great place to have a home base. And my team is really good, and it if somebody wanted to just, like, I talk to a lot of these entrepreneur guys because the building looks really cool and it looks like I am such a superstar professional if you walk in there. But, and they're all like, dude, why don't we have like 100 of these all over America? And it's like, because it's like an owner operator kind of business. You can't, if it gets bigger than one person can manage, it all falls apart. But like, it's also just like, I don't want to take over the world. I just want to sort of, support myself and have a nice life, and keep it, manageable and reasonable, and talk to the customers and get to know these people. And it's a local thing. The shops are very local. And so there's my two shops are only 10 miles from each other, and they do not compete with each other, which is fabulous. I mean, in a city like this, I can and just go visit all four of them in a day. And then, it's a nice life. So that's the eventual plan, and make some videos and podcasts too.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's funny how you take a day to go see all your buildings. Yeah, 10 miles in LA can take a day sometimes. We have the same problem here in Toronto.
for sure. But people are, but I'm saying for comparison, people very often, why don't you put one in Miami? Why don't you put one in San Francisco? Put one in New York? I'm talking about take a day to lap LA versus fly all over the country. That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Yeah, and it becomes like with the videos, then it becomes more work than you want to do because you have to spend all that time to fly somewhere and meet the people and talk. And no, I totally get it.
No, the with the gig work for sure, whether it's writing or whatever, it's that sort of unpaid transit slog is tough. Literally yesterday, I did about 2 hours of work, but it took about 6 hours of transit. You know what I mean? And like, that's the job. Like, I reviewed the new Audi S3, but in what it took me to get there and get back, like that, that's a whole day of just,
Yeah. Well, this is going to sound like the overprivileged complaining, but in Canada, we don't get deliveries. We have to go pick our cars up. And in Toronto, driving across the city both ways to get one car, like that's a 2.5 hour of your day gone right away. I mean, I actually don't mind it because it gives me some seat time that I might not get because I work out of here in my home. But sometimes when you have a time crunch, it's not fun.
I absolutely understand. And I know folks in the States as well that live in areas that are not near a major city, and they won't, it's further than they'll go, and they have to go, from wherever to wherever. It's far sometimes. They're driving hours, but that's why I moved here, because it's where things are. It's like, a lot of times, like, I'm not as lucky as you. I live out here. I was like, I picked up and moved for that. Like, I knew that was a thing, and I went there for that. Like, that was the point, like, of all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't
Yeah.
go there for the earthquakes and the droughts. You went
No,
there
but I
for-
did go there for the legalized marijuana and the sunshine also. So we can have
That's
that.
true. Yes.
And you have to deal with the earthquakes and the droughts and a bunch of other stupid things about this state, but most of them
Yeah.
are good.
I need
Of
to come
course.
visit your place next time I'm in LA. I've always been
Yeah,
meaning
we're
to, I
right,
just never got around to it.
We're right near LAX. We're 2.5 miles north of LAX. So it's very convenient for if you're flying in or out.
Sounds great.
Awesome.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you again sometime soon.
Absolutely. Talk to you guys later. Thanks for having me.
All right, we will wrap this up quickly because it's been a bit longer of an episode, but we had a lot to talk about, so
Sure.
that happens. So this week we are both driving vehicles in a comparison for a change, and it's a funky comparison because these are two of the funkiest interiors on the market: the Mini Countryman SE, or is it just the S Electric? I don't know what they call it
SE.
anymore. It is the SE
Yeah.
still?
Yeah.
Okay. And the
and-
Volvo EX30? Is it just the
EX30
EX30? Do you call it like twin
Dual
motor?
Yeah, twin motor performance, I think, and then it's single motor long range are the two trims. So they're two small European EVs, and I mean, we'll talk about it down the road when we have the comparison out. But yeah, it's funny because currently the Mini is the boxy choice and the Volvo is the swoopy, stylish alternative.
They're both obviously EVs kind of directed towards young, successful, probably city-based folks that want don't want a car, but want a car that's also sort of like a technological, like, oh, look at this. And the Volvo's just stupid fast. Like, I can't believe how quick that thing is. So yeah, but how you just said the trims is like, well, like I said, we won't give it away, but it is they've definitely benchmarked Tesla, and they have right down to the trim names apparently. So we'll get into that next week. After that, we kind of go complete different direction. Well, I guess you stay electric, but I go.
No, I don't. Not anymore.
Oh yeah, that's right. So I am going to be in the Toyota GR86 Special. What's it called? Hakone?
The Hakone?
Hakone. So the dark green. I'm looking forward to the color and the performance parts. And hopefully winter's over. I mean, I'll have a blast in the snow in it. I love rear-wheel drive cars in snow. It's more fun than you should be allowed to have. But
and my car is basically the same. You have gold wheels, and my car is apparently gold, painted. Not actual gold, although given the likely price tag, it could be. I am in the Porsche Panamera 4SE hybrid, so the plug-in hybrid version. This was a last-minute change. I found out this morning that I'd be in it next week. But yeah, I haven't driven the new Panamera. Mike did last year, the base model, so this is a few steps up. And yeah, I mean, it should also probably handle snow pretty well.
Yeah, the base V6, and then you got basically the same thing with the big electric motor giving you even more power. So it should be good. That car, I was really impressed with the base model. Really, they do a good job of still making it stand out and kind of feel Porsche-ish compared to the big Germans. It's not like it's a 911, but you feel like you're not just another big luxury car. So it'll be interesting, the contrast. And we will be back with a special guest from across the Atlantic next week. But until then, thank you for listening or watching the Auto Guide Show, brought to you by eBay Motors, and we will see you next week.
So long, everybody.
Picture this. You're halfway through a DIY car fix, tools scattered everywhere, and boom, you realize you're missing a part. It's okay, because you know whatever it is, it's on eBay. They've got everything: brakes, headlights, cold air intakes, whatever you need, and it's guaranteed to fit, which means no more crossing your fingers and hoping you ordered the right thing. All the parts you need, at the prices you'll love, guaranteed fit every time. eBay, things people love.